Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you want to find yourself in this weird, wild, wacky world we're in. This is another scene for Unmask Orlando, the Werewolf the Apocalypse venue. This evening's scene takes place at the heart of Aeolus, the sept in the Ocala National Forest in Ocala, Florida. And a meeting has been called for the Philodoxes of Heart of Aeolus and Unbroken Accord, though they will be receiving some unanticipated guests. But for the moment, I will run through my PC intros. And since Jessica BRB'd, we will start with Paul and Darla.
Where is this taking place at specifically?
Probably or near the Karen Heart. Karen, stop it.
Darla will come. She'll be in Hamid form. Dressed just for the weather in Florida right now.
Yeah, it's about... let's see what the weather's like today. Really, Kieran? We're doing that today? Okay, fine. It is about 83 degrees outside, so it is quite warm.
Okay. Then she is dressed in just shorts and a tank top. And she has her staff with her that the ST still needs to stat out. Wink, wink.
I'm working on it.
But being just a Cleothan's such an illustrious meeting, she's kind of hanging towards the side of the back, keeping to herself.
Okay, now we will go back to Miss Aziza, since you were temporarily away when I first went to do her intro, so...
Yeah, sorry, the doorbell was ringing.
But all right, life happens.
She would probably try to arrive with any other family members that are coming.
Talia will be there.
Then Talia would be in the front. She would take up his rear.
All right.
She knows her place when Grandpa's around. She would be dressed in like a knee-long, airy skirt because she's still not used to the non-culty clothes, and like a really light hooded jacket zipped up. I'm gonna approve. Little Prince approved.
Right. Okay. Caleb, I assume, is just here to observe, but we will go ahead and let him do his intro anyway.
He has a coffee in his hand, and he is just like watching from a distance. This is a meeting, and sometimes people may need Galliards to witness things, so he is there to witness.
Okay. And next, our new player enters the game. Christopher.
Right, Terminal Decree has howled and announced himself, and has more or less just taken the initiative to walk to wherever all the Gara are heading towards.
Okay. I will let my narrator intro her NPCs, and then I'll do mine.
Shit.
Did you not have your overlays set up? Do you want me to intro mine first?
No. I do. It's just that there's a lot of fucking people.
I mean, it is. But guess what? I have to do it too.
So, since Talia is with Aziza, everyone will notice this very giant man with just as big of a presence walking just slightly in front of her. He keeps looking back to her like, you're going to get tangled in my hair if you stay there.
Probably.
And he speaks with an accent that's similar to Russian, but it's not quite. And his hair is very long. It goes all the way down to his ankles. He stands 7'4". Those that have met him before know that this is Tolia Petrova. And he is here because, well, he's the highest ranking member in the vicinity of the Sept. So
Yeah, I mean, Noah is not an idiot. Noah likes living.
not that, if Noah had asked, if Noah hadn't invited him, he wouldn't have come. He's not a Philodox, so. But
Noah invited him out of sheer respect.
yes, and he accepted the
So-
invitation out of sheer respect.
The top left is Noah Nighthorse, the alpha of the Sept. He would probably be there to greet Tolia as he came in, and feels incredibly small next to this man
Everybody does.
because
Even
Noah's only about 6 feet tall.
Even his own son, who also has huge size, feels small next to his father.
He's not tiny. Hush.
But yes, he will be.
Moira is probably next to him because they are pack mates.
Yep. Which then that will bring me to Dev, Beta of the Sept, and packmate to Noah and Moira and Samara. And I might as well put up fucking Sebastian too. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Samara would also be with them because also pack mate.
Mhm. All of the pack.
Lowest man on the totem pole there.
Woman.
With her little
Whatever.
false turn rank.
Hey, her story is a bit like Seekers, so just because they hold that rank doesn't mean that that's what their knowledge is.
True.
Where is Sebastian?
Do
Which
I need to?
I still haven't made him a new overlay.
You
either.
haven't.
I know.
He needs to do an Elder
was not
Challenge.
Quite a prep. He does need to do his. Yes, let's do that before I make him a new overlay.
Mhm.
Okay, so Sebastian, who's on the Elder Council and packmate of important people on the Sept, is here because of that. And then other members. Diana Nighthorse has taken Darius Nighthorse's place on the Elder Council, and she is his twin sister. She is very much present. William Morgan is currently the truth catcher of Unbroken Accord, but that's going to change in this scene.
Yep, there will be an announcement just before everything begins about that. So,
and Jeremy Christensen, the beta of Unbroken Accord and an Elder Philodox. Geta Fenris, everybody will smell very potent Geta Fenris pure breed off of him. And then someone who does not come on Sept very much, but he is present for this because he wouldn't miss this for the world, is Darren Johnson, writes the rules, an Elder Glasswalker Philodox. And then we have a bunch of new arrivals.
also probably standing with Noah is Alexei, as he is the one who called this meeting.
Right? Yeah, the person who called the meeting should actually be there.
And for the moment, he is in Hamid because, He is not as begrudgingly in Hamid as some, but... And there you go.
And then 2 people from Ireland from the Sept of the Tri-Spiral, which anybody with, honestly, Garu lore 1 or 2 would know that that's the prominent Fianna Sept in Ireland. Aileen O'Brien decides the Destiny is an elder Fianna Philodox. She's the truth catcher of the Sept of the Tri-Spiral. And Kieran Donovan, off the beaten path, elder Philodox of the Fianna, is Beta of the Sept of the Tri-Spiral. And then Antonio Cienfuegos is Dev's father and the leader of the Judges of Doom, elder Philodox of the Shadow Lords.
The Judges of Doom probably all arrive together, so...
Yes, they do. Along with Isidora Gomez stares down the devil. She is an elder Galliard of the Judges of Doom, because you don't have to necessarily be a Philodox. Most of them are, but not all of them.
And Hector Fernandez, Silent Storm, would also arrive with them. He is a elder Arun of the Judges of Doom, and smells very strongly of Shadow Lord.
And then probably standing somewhat awkwardly between his father and his pack and the Judges of Doom is Bailey Gonzalez.
Deacon is probably with Bailey because he's a cub.
Yep. Yeah, and any cubs present that are also Philodoxes would...
He's the only Philodox cub.
Is he? Really? Okay. Damn, all those cubs, we only have one Philodox. We're really bad at this.
Yeah, we have a shitload of cubs, and that is the only Philodox, and he's about to take his fucking rite of passage, so...
Well, there we go. So Deacon would definitely be standing with Bailey, and then...
probably very awkwardly, because it's like, there is a lot of really high-ranking people here.
Oh, yeah.
Not used to this.
And then standing with her twin is Melinda Valerie, one of the adopted metis of Estrella Valerie.
Yes.
Who is a Philodox Fostern as well.
Yes. Matthias is probably leaning on his cane because he needs it to walk. Dominic is got really no idea. Like, he knows Hector. That's about the only... He knows several of the other people in passing. He knows Sebastian because he's worked with him when he was the Den Father.
Mm-hmm. He should know Bailey.
He knows Bailey now that he's been working with him as the Den Parent.
And, his girlfriend's twin brother and nephew.
Yeah. Well, that's a kind of recent development.
I know it is. Shush. Let's see, who else would he actually know? Honestly, maybe he might know Rights to the Rules.
Probably.
From being in the
also,
city and fellow Philodox. So.
Michael is probably standing with his mother.
Oh, most likely, yeah.
Because Shy Flaw, he's dying right now.
Poor Michael.
There is a lot of people.
Yeah, his mother is definitely standing there trying to keep him as calm as possible.
I mean, he's internally freaking out, but he's,
Mm-hmm.
Ben is probably standing fairly close to them as well. Mends the Bridges is probably somewhere between all of them. She is probably in Lupus, to be fair. She is probably still in Lupus. And then, of course, there is Delphia Belmont, the truth catcher of the Heart of Aeolus, at least for the moment. Which, as everyone gathers, Noah will kind of clear his throat and draw the attention onto himself. Before we start, I have an announcement to make. Delphia, Will, would you two come up here, please?
Will up by himself.
I should fucking put the two up by themselves, but Jesus, it's a lot of fucking work to change the overlay, so I'm not doing it. I'm not fucking doing it.
So yes, we'll come up.
It's a lot of NPCs. You were warned before this started. So, before we start this meeting, we are having a change of power here on the Sept, on Heart of Aeolus. Delphia Belmont has decided to step down as our truth catcher. And in her place will be William Morgan, the former truth catcher now of Unbroken Accord.
Will nod his head, and he will hug Delphia.
Yeah, she will return the hug because thank fuck she didn't want this job anymore.
And he will look to the group and say, yes, it was imperative that I move here, and so I am happy to take the position, and I promise to serve this sept well.
Aziza will quietly clap from behind Talia.
Asir will smile somewhat sadly. He's sad to see William go, but glad that he's going to be happier, or at least, for his son, because he's not aware of the other situation. No one is. But yeah. Anyway,
Bill's son and his girlfriend are.
But yeah, Asir is a bit sad, but he's happy that at least he gets to keep the position he had at Unbroken Accord because he knows how much he loved it. So,
yeah, Delphia hates it. She is too child of Gaia for that fucking position.
And now Asir has to think of who he's going to recommend to take Will's place.
And with that, Noah kind of steps down and lets the Philodoxes take over because this is their show. Actually, he would probably, motion for Will because he's the new truth catcher. This is now, do your thing.
Well, shit. He's like, oh. He internally is like, fuck, I didn't think about that.
Noah is a shithead.
Noah is a shithead. You sure you're not a ragabash, son?
I've always kind of sworn he's half ragabash, half Galliard.
Be like, dearly beloved, we are gathered here. Oh wait, that's not the right thing. We're not doing that. Oh, he will look at the assembled and he will say, well, he looks over to Alexi. I believe you were the one that called this meeting, so how about you give the details of what you would like to have done here today?
Yeah, I guess that kind of is my job. I'm the one who called this little gathering. Why are you so fucking noisy? Hush.
Because he's a baby.
He is. He's got terrible timing, though.
I know, it's great. Makes the scenes entertaining.
Of note, Alexei speaks with a distinct Russian accent. I'm not doing it. I'm terrible at it. Accept it. I've gathered you all here today because I think we need to take a look at... I mean, I can't totally make you, Jessica. Deal with it. How we want to move forward with certain interpretations of the litany, particularly in respect to couples of the same gender.
Several of them will nod their heads. Antonio will speak up. Was that all?
We wanted an official interpretation moving forward.
What do you mean by official interpretation?
How we're going to be handling it moving forward on our sept and an unbroken accord.
Such a thing is impossible. It
Really
goes
now.
against the concept of what a philodox is.
I believe what the gentleman was trying to say, though, is they want us to have a guideline instead of each of us giving our own individual opinion and confusing the cubs.
Philodox are meant to have individual opinions.
I will not argue with you there, that is correct, but we all need a basic guideline to help the cubs along the way, because some cubs don't like individual interpretations and just do what they want if we disagree. It's not that we can... Go ahead.
If Philodox disagree, then simply this can be resolved through matters of challenge or rank, or simply debate.
Yes, but...
And that's the main reason you're here.
She'll just nod along with the guy talking.
Antonio will nod. He thinks that he understands what is wanted here. You've called together many philodoxes, including those of us of high rank, in order to get a universal interpretation that we may enforce throughout. Other philodoxes are obviously entitled to their opinions, and they can change, but in order to properly teach what it means, there needs to be some sort of baseline consensus. That is usually the responsibility of the individual truth catchers in the septs, is to be the final arbiter of what the litany means to that particular sept.
Alexei kind of, looks at him. He initially did not intend for this to blow up the way it did. It was intended for, their sept and Unbroken Accord, and it has turned into this monster of a thing.
That's what happens when the Sept Beta is the son of the head judge of Doom.
Yeah. This was not Alexei's initial intention at all. His initial intention got blown to hell.
I am here to merely listen, and if I agree with what I hear today, I may enforce it at Golden Stairs. Or I may not, because that is up to me.
He would
Case in
nod.
point. He just gestures towards the stranger. I guess elder. Actually, he's probably heard of you because you're an elder.
Yeah, if you are Shadow Lord Philodox, yes?
Yes.
You know who this is.
You know who this is. This is the head of the Judges of Doom.
Okay, yeah.
The
then.
Shadow Lord camp. You only need Shadow Lord Lore 1 to know who this is.
So we're to debate whether it's allowed or not for Garu of the same gender to be a couple.
That is the basis, yes.
If I remember my lessons, the main issue with that was offspring, correct?
That is where it's up for interpretation. Every Philodox seems to have their own interpretation as to where the focus lies. On simply being together or on the offspring.
The problem with allowing two Garu of the same gender to be together and not everyone else is the problem. Because if we allow one, we have to allow them all. And if we allow anyone to be together, then we run the risk of Metis being born, which is very much against the litany.
Why would we have to let everyone be together if we allow the same genders?
Because otherwise it would be an unfair application of the litany. It would be discrimination in its most overt and obvious sense.
It's a matter of social justice and equality.
Very few
It's
things in
neither
life,
fair nor
especially
equal.
for Garu, are fair. Why does fairness have to apply to this?
The very concept of honor is based in fairness. To make that statement is to reject honor. I don't really understand the statement. I assume what you mean to say is that our society is socially Darwinistic. Yes.
By its very nature.
Yes, but that is not necessarily unfair. The strong and those who merit it rise to the top, those who don't remain at the bottom. It is hierarchical, but it is not unfair.
And in an ideal world, that is exactly how things would work.
I'm along the lines of, if no metis are born from it, and a male want to lie together, that is fine. Or a female and a female. I do not agree, though, with a situation that would involve a metis being born. Not that I have much against metis besides the normal situations. That's a lot of agony to put a child through, though.
Is it though? As, the Metis Philodox speaks up.
I don't mean it offensively, but most metas I've seen are in extreme amounts of pain every day of their life.
I'm not in pain.
Then I'm glad
I
you're not in
I
pain.
have difficulties, but it's no more than any other hindrance that a normal person might have.
I'm
With
just
my brother's deformity, anyone could get that, whether in battle or simply being born with it.
It is
Just
literally
because
a divine marking.
I am simply
It's-
along the lines, no one who suffers should suffer in that manner, the ones that do suffer. I'm sorry if I have offended.
she'll shrug. It is not us that are in the most pain. It is our parents. Mine are
Exactly.
Ours are dead because they had us. How is that right for us to grow up without our parents because you think that it's wrong for us to be born?
Don't get me
It
wrong.
is.
I love Estrella. She's been there for us since forever, but
Melinda will
our
nod.
parents were put to death.
Yes, they breached the litany. Knowingly.
And had it not been for Estrella, we would have died as well. Both of us.
So you think that it's right to allow, if we go back to the basics, warriors of Gaia to die because they fell in love or they made a mistake, and to have children because we were children grow up without their parents and have to be taken in by somebody else. How is that right?
Because to not punish them for their actions would be to abdicate any sense of responsibility. It would be to allow those to break the law knowingly and not allow for any consequences. As
It's an
such,
archaic-
it is effectively
It's an archaic
advocating.
notion to be putting them to death for it.
Tell me. I had 2 Metis children. Should I be put to death as well? That
You
was
have-
Samara talking, by the way.
I look around. Who is this? Oh.
Samara. Hang on. I will.
You have had 2 Metis children.
I did. Twins.
So there is the pauses in character. To clarify, you have mated with another Gary, yes?
Samara takes a deep breath. What happened to me should never happen to anyone, but it did. And if I had been born Hagayan Garu, I would have been put to death for it, most likely. But I wasn't.
But in that instance, you were a victim of a crime perpetrated onto you. You did not have control over that situation.
I still carried those children. I could have done something about it. But I didn't.
But does that not then imply that the production of Metis is not the purpose of the first law of the litany? As it does not actually state anything about the production of Metis at all. In fact, if I recall, a common belief I have heard is that the offspring of such a coupling is a byproduct. It is not the crime in and of itself. It is a consequence of it.
Then tell me, what is your opinion of why it's wrong for two Garu to be together?
Other than the practical, which I shall not bore you with because we all know what that entails, the simple truth is that the litany states Garu should not mate with Garu. That is about as clear as it can be.
But why? What purpose does it serve to keep people from being with the ones that they want to be with? Because we're still people under this. We're supposed to blindly follow a law without asking why it exists.
If you wish to change the law, you may hold a second concordate. But to ignore it entirely, a law that, well, all those beholden to the nation obey is what is to literally, it is to literally betray the nation. To literally turn it, to ignore its laws wholesale, to declare that this is no longer a law we will follow, is to go rogue.
Caleb raises his hands to speak. It is a Galliard. He can be like he doesn't expect it to be let talk, but he actually raises his hand anyway.
Antonio will let him speak.
With all due respect,
Yes.
honored elders, according to my history knowledge, the litany is written by Garu. Why it can be rewritten?
Oh, it could.
He takes a deep breath because like he is about to say something weird. I understand that it has been taught to many of us that the mating with another Garu is a crime and it should be punished. But I have to stand with those who says why we should punish love and why we should punish one of the biggest thing that has Gaia given to us. If we stop love, we're going to breed unhappiness. And it is already too hard to find happiness in this world with the war against the worm.
Perhaps one choice or the other is not what we should be looking for at this moment, but some kind of middle ground that we can all be content with until issue can be better settled.
Middle ground isn't going to help anyone. It's going to create more contempt.
With this. Oh, sorry, my apologies.
I never said it would be a permanent solution, but we do probably have much more important things to deal with at the moment. I have nothing wrong with two Garu who love each other, as long as everyone knows the danger they're putting themselves into. Death is an extreme punishment, but sometimes things should be found alternate to punish the crime.
Alexi speaks up. I also have a way to prevent the birth of any menace. regardless. But that's not the point of today's meeting. So,
We were talking about whether same-gender couples is in violation of the tenant, not
Yes,
whether the tenant should be abolished or not.
you cannot abolish the tenant.
I support same-sex
No.
couples together for this.
My apologies. Who says I can't abolish anything? Like, where is the litany rule that I can't say that it doesn't say that these rules can change? I'm not defending it should be changed now. I'm just asking because you say you can't change a tenant, and I'm asking you how you can tell me you can't change these tenants.
The scepter alone would not be able to change the tenant as it is written. It would
No.
require a meeting of most, if not all, septs in the world. Keep in mind, the litany was also not just an agreement, a compact between Garu. It was a spiritual pact between some of the most powerful incarnate that have ever existed. When one
Yeah.
betrays the litany, they are betraying those spirits. They're betraying those oaths that have lasted for thousands of years.
And we should be beholden to those promises who have been made by our ancestors? I never made that promise. You should not be beholden to promises that your family has made, nor should I. I understand that spirits works differently, and sadly I am not the best person to speak about spirits, but I'm sure there can be a compromise.
And yet we are all bound, we are all oath bound to protect Gaia, regardless of whether we said so or not.
Completely. This is not about defending or not defending Gaia. I would.
My point is that is not something you necessarily came to the conclusion to on your own. That is something, as a Garu, you have always been made to do. That is something you must do. You agree with it, yes, and that is convenient, but that is also irrelevant.
I mean, let's look around and see how many Garu agrees and how many Garu disagrees. We can petition to the those who can change these rules as well.
we have someone here who can petition to change that rule. As Samara looks to Antonio.
Antonio actually gives a half smile, and I kept being interrupted as I was trying to say that I can petition to have it changed if I so wanted to, because all it takes is my recommendation to the High King. He is the one who has the pact with the spirits, and he can change it. However, that's not why I'm here today, and that would require a separate meeting. But it can be changed. That's not set in stone. It would require a lot of work, but it can be changed. The interpretation of Garu shall not mate with other Garu depends on whether you believe that mating means sex resulting in offspring or sex in general.
The litany has, strictly speaking, no stance on the production of Metis offspring. It literally does not mention them at all.
Nope. No, it sure doesn't. You were right about that. But that is what many Philodoxes in many septs have interpreted it to mean, is that mating means sex resulting in offspring, which means Metis are against the litany.
By many, I assume we mean largely one tribe.
In
Out of
most
13.
septs that I have visited, that is every Philodox's interpretation.
Mm.
And I've visited a lot of septs.
Ziza's done breathing and counting to 5. She will peek out.
She actually raises an eyebrow and seems to internally question whether that is actually true.
She's going to peek out from behind her grandfather again because, big meat shield. and look towards the higher elders of the meeting and be like, so perhaps we should just take a vote.
Mm,
I feel like this is just going to be argued in circles all night if we don't establish something.
the problem is a vote cannot bind any one of us. So that's really a non-starter. That is sort of the problem with this whole discussion.
Well,
None of us would be honor bound to uphold the results of the vote.
I would.
You would be honor bound to uphold what the elders tell you.
You could overrule my rulings, but you could not force me to rule in a certain way.
She's just shaking her head and has put her forehead against her grandfather's shoulder.
Because that would be allowing an external force to influence my ruling, which is strictly dishonorable. It actually let us speak of a hypothesis. If I was ruling on a case where a guy was accused of committing a certain crime, and I knew this guy was not guilty yet, my elder told me to convict them anyway, and I am to follow the orders of my elders. Well, I think we can all understand what that means. Now, granted, that is a fairly radical example, but you understand my point.
That is a very radical example. The point of this meeting is for the elders to decide what is going to be upheld at the two septs in question.
Why don't the elders come to a decision? Why are they consulting Cleophs and Cubs who
Because
clearly are not being listened to?
you're the one talking and not listening to anybody else.
I am simply expressing my opinion, but everyone here has already made up their minds, so I don't see why a discussion is even necessary.
I haven't
Not
made
everyone's
up my
made up
mind.
their minds.
Like, yeah, all of my other philodoxes are like, excuse me? We haven't even spoken yet.
For reference, that was Hector.
Oh, there he is.
Bottom right.
I feel like we're entering dangerous grounds. Maybe we should take 5 or 10 seconds to calm ourselves.
Hector kind of looks over at her. Gives her a little nod.
My deed name is Calm with the Storm.
Fitting.
My point regarding Yoda's coming to a decision still stands. If this discussion is about the elders coming to a decision,
I asked everyone here so that they could be heard.
Oh, see, I'm assuming that was Noah the Alpha.
No, that was Alexi.
Okay. Kind of the same tone for him on my end.
Yeah, I try to differentiate, but I only have so many male voices, okay?
so if I may ask then, how are we coming to a decision? Because that is actually quite important.
I will leave that up to people that are more suited for that than myself. I am a humble Theurge.
Diana will speak up. And she will look over to Moira. Since this is a decision regarding this sept and Unbroken Accord, then I believe that it should be myself, Moira, Hand of a Seer, and Will Morgan that makes the decision.
Well, thank
Now,
you.
We have Morgan. Sorry.
if the decision wants to be
Oh, here.
extended beyond,
Hang on. There you go. William Morgan, Jeremy
Knight.
Christensen, Diana Nighthorse.
Okay,
Yep.
those four.
These three.
And then Moira, bottom left.
Okay.
Diana
This
will
is
continue.
the one thing I don't like about StreamYard.
Yeah. If the decision is to be extended beyond these two septs, if that is something that interests the Judges of Doom, then they may be involved as well. But she'll shrug. If not, then
Depends
I
on
believe
what
it
I
should be up
hear.
to us. I see no harm in allowing Garu of the same sex or even opposite sex who have no capability of producing children to be with each other.
I would argue it's a slippery slope.
It might be, but it's the year 2000. Times are changing. Maybe the nation should stop trying to hold itself back. It is a slippery slope to becoming drastically behind the rest of the world because we still have to exist in that world. We aren't in our own bubble. As much as some of us would like to be, we're not. We have to exist both in our world and the mortal world.
But
And we should change with the times.
Yes, but I would argue we do have our own world, and we are not
do.
human.
We're not, but we are Hamid, who exist in both worlds, who would like to have the same rights in both worlds.
I'm not Hamid. I don't know about you, but I'm certainly not.
You aren't, no, but many of us are, and there are more and more Hamids being born.
Aziza is going to point at Bishop's character. I don't know his name. Sorry.
His name he has introduced himself as Terminal Decree.
Okay. And looking towards him, she's going to say, I would like to state that being in your personal bubble is not fun, and both of these worlds are beautiful things. And if we must evolve, then we should do it. Worst case scenario, we do a trial time. If it doesn't work and it gets bad, we go back to how things used to be.
It's hard to roll back decisions once they've been made.
Particularly decisions like these.
This is a major decision, and it can't be rolled back.
At least, true. And I mean, for now, it's 2 septs out of the whole world. That's not that large.
I just want to mention
significantly large.
the possible hostilities this could breed amongst the heterosexual. Am I saying that right? My apologies.
Heterosexual or straight.
If you say that those who cannot produce children or those of the same sex can be together, but heterosexuals cannot. Wouldn't this breed hostility between the two types?
I mean, there's always condoms.
They're not 100% effective.
No, they're not.
No, but I make a birth control that is.
And you can always be with someone without having sex. There is
Can
such a thing as an asexual romance.
Caleb is looking at his eyes out, doesn't say anything, but he's just like, I don't know about that.
And for the record, I would not actually consider such a thing a breach of the litany, because that is not what the litany states would be a breach.
No, fussy baby.
Oh, she'll just smile towards Caleb, who's giving her a funny look, still standing by her grandfather, completely terrified of everyone here.
But no, and while condoms aren't 100% effective, I make a birth control that is.
Can this be widely distributed across all seps?
Probably. If I can produce enough of it. And I'm not the only one. There are other hedge mages who can.
So the Seps of the Nation must rely on hedge mages to work around the law now?
There's nothing wrong with hedge mages.
I'm not stating there are, or there is rather, but one, they aren't exactly commonplace, and two, they are not of our nation.
I kind of
I
see
would
his
presume
point.
most hedge mages do not even know what a Gaia is, and have entirely their own agendas.
Aziz is growling some at him.
Do you
Tolia,
dispute my
will
argument, or are you going to stare me down and challenge me?
let's not have it come to challenges. Tolia will speak, if I may.
Yes, grandfather.
For those of you who do not know me, I am Tolia Petrova, deeded soul of mountains. I am born on 2 legs under the gibbous moon, and I am a legend of the nation. I am not a Philodox, but I have my opinions. I don't believe that our laws should tell us who we can and can't have sex with. That should be a personal decision between 2 people. If the mortal world in the country we live in decided to enforce a law that said, well, they actually have, that says 2 types of people can't have sex because same-sex couplings is wrong and against the law in many states. They don't have the same rights. So in a way, this is a mirror.
I cannot agree with that statement in the slightest.
Are you going to argue every single point just to be contrary?
I'm not. My intent is not to be contrarian.
Well, you are. To every single point that has been trying to be made by either any Philodox here or your fellow Cleoths who aren't.
I find the argument.
I think that you just want what you think. And you aren't open to any other person's opinion, which is definitely not the way of a Philodox.
That is extraordinarily ironic, given that I am the only person speaking up for devil's advocacy right now.
Aziza has rolled her eyes
Hardly,
hard.
boy.
I don't think so.
Aziza is pulling out the flask grandfather would know so well and opening it fairly quickly.
I mean, your argument against me was to throw an ad hominem at me and insult me. I didn't actually even get around to making my point.
And what is your point?
My point was going to be that while there are parallels between human and Garo culture, naturally, as particularly for Homids, we are one step in, one step out, but to some extent we all are. In regards to this cultural trend, this is something that Garo and Homid, humans rather, have been on very different and distinct paths on for millennia. And we do not share the same issues in regards to this particular matter. Just one example here, but the most obvious is that when same-sex human couplings mate, or just humans mating in general, actually, is actually a much better point, because same-sex human couplings are completely, irrelevant to us, to be honest. But when humans mate, they do not create a child deformed and marked by the spirits. As we know this. We know that this is a divine marking. This is not a matter of debate. We know this is a fact. It is not merely biological. It is a spiritual mark. It is the basis for the Fianna's discrimination.
Adding a character, I think now would be a good time for the two Fianna to speak.
Yeah.
Yes, it would.
While I'm slowly getting closer to maybe having to roll Aziza's rage.
Not all of us, Fianna, hold prejudice in our hearts.
That is not my point.
And to say that essentially you're not just banning sex, you're banning love. Would you say two Garu falling in love is wrong?
It would not be within my purview if they kept it within the boundaries of the law.
Caleb raises his hand again. If like any elder was speaking, he will like not raise his hand because he doesn't want to, interrupt anyone.
Moira would kind of look over at him. Go ahead.
Honored elders and fellow Cleats, I think we are not going to deny, any of us, that there are parts of nation where metis are treated very harshly, where even kinfolk is treated very harshly. We live in a sept where these things aren't the case, as far as I have seen. The war that we have has been bloody, and we lost many people. This caused anger, and we are already angry. But what I'm trying to say is, I feel we're holding ourselves into this would happen and that would happen. And we're trying to be very disclusive about the possibilities. Now, I'm not trying to insult anybody when I say this, but I think to understand love and to understand the possibilities, we can actually ask those medices whose parents have been killed because of the litany. If being a metis is not guilt, then why it's a problem? I'm trying to understand. And we say like it's because Litany says it so, but why Litany says it? I think we are arguing that this is the law,
Well,
and just leave it be. But like, I think if these arguments needs to be made and needs to be explained, I think we need to explain the core ideals of why it was a problem, and why it is a problem, and why it may not it may not be a problem anymore. There are like, you're right in this. We just agreed. We like, not me, but like you all agreed that the two Garu mating is not a problem until a Metis is offspring happens. But like, why? What's going to happen when a Metis is born?
My only concern was children being hurt and the mother dying to give birth. If that can be situated, then I have no complaint against it at this
I
point.
mean, that's your choice. If the mother is taking the risk, why not? Every single one of us is taking risk by breeding nearly because of the worm.
uh, uh,
She's going to look right at Terminal and go, "This was a personal opinion I stated. I am sure yours differs from mine."
Like, I think it's just too. We don't realize how disconcerted. Like we're just holding ourselves to change. That's how it feels like from here. And I say this as a Galliard and not a Philodox. And if I, again, disrespecting anyone, I simply apologize for doing so.
I feel as if we are arguing two different sets of arguments. And I'm going to be very blunt, but I have heard much here of whether two Garu loving each other is wrong, with very heavy implications leaning in one direction. But frankly, that part of the discussion, or rather that discussion, is entirely segregate from what the premise of this gathering was meant to be. And it was to discuss the legality of two Garu mating, not the ethics of it.
And most people are going to vote or make an opinion based on their own opinions and ethics. A personal thought and opinion can't be swayed or changed by a single voice or a mass of
You
voices.
cannot break the law just because you believe the law is wrong. If you believe the law is wrong, then you go through the appropriate process to change the law, which in this case involves a global concordate.
I mean, there are people who breaks the law all the time and gets away with it because they're not caught.
Oh, so that makes breaking the law acceptable? That it is merely a matter of, well,
it doesn't make
as long as I eat that
No,
bar
it
over there, it's fine.
Like, I completely understand where you come from, but at the same time, is like we need to ask why people breaking the law, because it's a law that says like you can't do this, you can't fall in love with the packmate that you you can't just like have an offspring with a packmate that you survived many things together. The pack has a bond, and sometimes this becomes a thing between people. Like, what I'm trying to say is, I think there is a detail about this that we need to enter that we aren't entering. And you say this is not the place to talk about it, but I say, we can talk about it and actually understand each other more, and where we all stand.
What I am saying is that the ethics of it do not pertain to the legality of it. You can have an opinion on one of these things and have an entirely different opinion, or rather, the truth can be entirely different on this segregate issue, because the simple truth is that the legality of it is fairly obvious. The ethics of it far less so. This appears to be where the debate has gone.
Aziza's just going to look at the elders at this point and be like, you know my opinion, even if I'm just a Cleith, what I think should be done. She's going to then look at Terminal and go, sometimes laws must be broken to save yourself. And she's going to go and sit down on a rock or stump as close to her grandfather as possible.
If you break the litany, you will be punished.
That's not
He
your
says that
decision.
completely flat-faced, by the way. He doesn't actually. He seems to just say that completely straight and just almost like it's very cold. It's very straightforward. It comes across as cold, I should state.
I think if there is going to be law, it needs to be pushed. I agree with that, and I think if Ziza, pardon, I don't know he doesn't know her name, so he's just gonna say if that individual breaks a litany, that individual should be punished. But at the same time, we should actually look at our laws and make sure it fits us. If a law is not fitting, it would change. It's common sense to change the laws according to the needs and according to the general populace.
Then
Like if the majority of a place says like this law is kind of old, man, like you may need to change that law.
all of these laws are old.
I completely fucking agree, and I apologize
Yes.
for saying fuck, but yeah, I agree.
An appeal against the tradition is not. It is not a reason to change a law in and of itself.
Can you say it again? I didn't understand. My apologies.
An appeal against tradition is not a reason to change a law in and of itself. It's merely a statement that a law is in fact old. But the age of a law does not necessarily mean it is right or wrong. Some laws age better than others.
No, that's completely true, but some laws doesn't age well, and this is one of them.
Okay, why?
Like, why? Like, who fucks who doesn't kind of like not anyone's business other than that person? Like, why the Metis borns and why we are against the offspring of Metis? Like, I need that reason to understand why this law exists.
I actually have something to interject on that.
No, go right ahead, please. I'm all ears.
I think we're getting very far away from constructive conversations. I've noticed as listening to people, we're starting to slip closer into I'm angry at you, so I'm going to debate you. But the simple facts are the law is the law is the law. You break it, you are punished. It's very clear that that is our role as Philodox. If we want to change the law, then that can be a topic for another time. But now we need to decide on the matters that are presented today. The reasoning behind why Garu should not date one another, I think none of us have touched on a very important aspect of our nature. We're at war. Allowing two combatants to fall in love with one another, you run the risk of that affecting their judgment. What's best for the nation may not enter their mind as quickly as what's best for my loved one. There's a reason why most armies of the world don't allow their soldiers to couple. I'm not saying that that's right or wrong here, but this is an aspect of our society that we
Hang
need to
on,
think about.
because one of our Philodoxes is actually former military. Actually, you're wrong there. They don't allow someone within their direct supervisory chain of command to be in a relationship because that person has an effect on your potential to further your career. If they're not in your chain of command, the army doesn't give two shits who you're fucking.
That may be the case, but we can't say that the litany only applies to people within certain proximity of each other.
I'm just refuting your failed attempt at a point.
There
This
is
is
still legitimacy to his point. The military
This is again
still
where I
has
feel
logic
like we're
and
branching
benefits
away
to
from
it.
constructive conversation and going towards more personal attacks against one another.
I actually agree with you on the case of like, we are a militant nation and all of our jobs is to fight with the worm. I agree with that. But I think like just like any other law, like like the human law that we talked about, it's not like you love this guy so you may kind of betray us, therefore we're going to put another law. There's no law for this. But they put law on logic as far as I can say, but I like let's just not say it's logic made morally benefit, but at the same time it's like I think this kind of is like too much of entering someone's personal life. But again, that is me, and I will stop because I feel like I derailed the conversation, and I apologize for it.
There is
But
a
no,
thing here, correct?
Alexei.
Alexei, a metis, the deformity that is guaranteed in all metis, is this a sign from the spirits of their displeasure?
Yes.
You're not a
You know.
Theurge. Shut the fuck up.
No, this isn't in fact, this is common knowledge.
I'm sorry, I
I
didn't.
do not speak as a matter of theory. This is what we know.
Though this is true, you were interrupting this. I did not ask you.
You asked a question. I believe I believed you would ask in the crowd. If I was incorrect, I apologize.
I said Alexei.
No, she asked the
specifically.
question directly to Alexei.
Yeah, she
So then I
directly
apologize.
asked Alexei, the only Theurge present.
Yep.
And the one who called this meeting.
Is it a sign of the spirit's displeasure, of Gaia's displeasure with metis? Or with the act of mating?
Alexei sighs because anyone who has been on the Sept for any length of time knows that he does have a metis child. Oh, hang on. Kid is falling off the bed. Come here. Up you go. I can't speak for the spirits at the moment, but once again, we get away from the point as to why I called you all here.
OC, quick question. Did he actually give him a straight answer?
He did not.
Noted.
He's slightly biased in this situation because of his son. Especially because his son ended up with double jeopardy. He is both albino and blind.
This conversation has been off topic for quite some time now, though since metises have been a big part of this conversation, I think we need a definitive answer. Something set in stone, 100% truth. Does such a thing exist? Are Metis's deformities a sign of Gaia's displeasure, with the spirit's displeasure?
Karen will speak up. as he is a Fianna Philodox. I might not be a Theurge, but I am a Fianna, and we have a lot of stories pertaining to Metis and why they are deformed. And it is because the spirits are displeased at the power that Metis could wield were they not held back by some sort of disability or deformity or what have you. But I don't think it has anything to do with them actually existing, contrary to what many of my tribe might believe. It is just because a Garu offspring would be something of a great power that the world is not ready for. So that is why they are sterile and why they are deformed.
If I may, a popular postulation, not that it is necessarily my own, but one that in these debates I hear often, is in regards to meta-sterility, of course, because a Garu-on-Garu coupling guarantees a Garu. In theory, if Metis were not to be sterile, we could have a veritable army of Garu. A common theory thrown around is that because of it is our purpose to be Gaia's guardians. This is why Metis are sterile, because we are Gaia's guardians, not the conquerors of the earth. As the good Ra states, it is a deliberate limitation, at least in regards to sterility. In regards to deformities, well, I've already made my statement of that.
I think that the allowing same-sex coupling can cause a lot of animosity and division. And it's solely on that merit that I feel that we should not allow it to happen. Just because I fear that it might divide us even more. We've already seen how divided the Philodox are on this topic. And how tempers flare when it's discussed. It may be that someday it should happen, but maybe we as a society is not ready for it.
And if it goes this way, we're probably never going to be ready for it.
Can I say something? I wasn't raised amongst Guy and Garu. I was born and raised in a black spiral hive.
Aziza is looking at the group more sternly.
So my views tend to be somewhat different. Based on that alone.
Izzy, the bottom right on my overlay.
I will.
Um,
There you go.
Izzy will look to Samara and she'll say, since you were a member of the Black Spiral Dancers, as a Galliard, I've studied their litany, but I want to know from your experience what their interpretation is on this particular law.
This isn't a part of their litany at all. Metis aren't viewed any differently than any other Garu.
She nods. And why do they decide to ignore it?
If anything, recruitment. Many Metis end up joining the Black Spirals simply because they are so poorly treated here it drives them away. Drives them right into the arms of the Black Spirals. I've seen it happen countless times.
She just simply nods.
I've watched so many young Metis come in to our hives because the guy in Nation treats them like, well, no better than they treat us, quite frankly. Or them.
Kieran will speak up again. I know how the nation, especially more conservative members of my tribe, treat them. It does drive them to the arms of the worm. I've tried to convince some to treat Metis a little better, but it doesn't quite work. I myself would never make one on purpose, but I believe that we should not punish the ones that are here because of negligence. It's not their fault. But on the matter of why we are here, I agree with Calms the Storm. It should be an all or nothing situation. Why either allow all Garu to be together or we don't allow it at all. Because otherwise it breeds dissent and division, and we don't need more.
And my stance is much the same.
I'm not exactly sure where I stand on it yet. I have to think about it more. And Aileen will nod, and she is sort of on the same page with Kieran. She's not exactly sure where she stands. They came over here to listen, much like the Judges of Doom.
I too feel that the way Metis are treated in the nation is tragic, but I'm a child of Gaia, so I might be a bit biased on that.
I mean, anyone who treats Metis like shit is just a small dick piece of shit.
I would have to agree with both of you on that sentiment as a Strider.
And I stand behind my words. There's no heroism or there was no niceness into treating someone who's, either just because of the way they're born. It's just stupid and, idiotic.
Prejudice against Metis in general generally only breeds, ironically, division and dissent.
I mean, it's just not for Metis, man. Like if you treat your allies like shit, it's just gonna create a dissent and division anyway. There's
It's not
no,
as weird as impractical
yeah,
and a
it's
waste of time.
impractical. It's a waste of time to just treat them shit because the way they born, or it's not even their fucking decision the way they born. But I'm
It's
just gonna calm down because I'm
lacking.
about to lose my shit about this subject. It's just close home. Sorry.
It's quite alright. I think we've gotten off topic more than a few times. But yes, I think at the barest minimum, there is a consensus that it is at the very least impractical and largely unethical. There's nothing to be gained from it. But still, I believe a decision is to be made. And, well, I suppose before that decision is made, are there any points left to be made? Anyone else who wishes to speak?
There's only one other person that hasn't spoken yet, really, which is Darren. Which he will just say, my opinions on the matter are more for advocating for changing the law, so I will abstain from this discussion because I don't agree with the law at all. And then he'll step back.
Samuel seems far more satisfied with that standpoint. He kind of, you can see that expression, it's far more respectful. There is only one thing, I believe one point, mainly because it is generally the most common argument I've heard in advocacy of the first edition, and it's the only one that hasn't been stated. So I suppose just for the sake of completeness, can feel free to argue amongst. This isn't really my position, to be honest. But generally, the first edition of the litany has been interpreted as a argument against passion and indulgence, as throughout the Garu history, we have all seen and heard of what happens when Garu give in to them, and that Garu are charged with looking over humans and wolves, and that in violating the first tradition, one is indulging their passions and, by extension, neglecting that responsibility and duty.
It kind of feels like would have, should have kind of thing, like it's like we could be like this if we do this. But like that to me at least, that feels that way.
Well, in theory, that is the main reason why the law exists outside of Metis.
Humans, Garu, Lupus, you can only control your passions, as you would put it, for so long. But it doesn't even really matter. We've been given the right to share our opinions, which is we should all be grateful for. But in the long run, we're going to have to follow whatever the elders tell us.
I literally cannot be forced to give a conviction I would not agree with. It would be dishonorable. I cannot do that. I would be dishonoring my auspice. I do not say this out of any sense of spite or contempt or contrarianism. It is literally something I cannot do. I can be overruled, but I cannot be forced to make. I cannot be forced into a judgment. It is what it is quite literally. It would be considered coercion.
That's not how.
And she'll say, we aren't, well, at least I am not recommending that we force all Philodoxes here to accept it. It is merely, we are trying to get on the same page of interpretation as a guideline for teaching cubs and what is acceptable. And if you have challenged the ruling, but you may be overruled.
This is where I believe humanity does actually provide a good mirror. Consider it like a judiciary, where lower judges can issue certain rulings and can be overruled by judges on separate high-ranking circuits.
Exactly.
But
And
a high-ranking judge could not. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that this high-ranking judge could overrule a lesser judge, but they could not force that lesser judge to say, this is what you're going to rule on. This is what you're going to rule. This is what your ruling will be.
Right. But the ruling that we hand down would be a guideline for yours, if that makes sense. And if you disagree with the ruling entirely, then you could challenge it. You probably won't win, but you could challenge it. Because this is the way that the decision made here today is the guideline that will be followed for the question. And if you challenge it, it will not be. It's not going to change because you challenge it.
But that relies on the setting of precedent. But this sept would be the one upturning precedent if it were to go in stating that this part of the litany is legal. Because it is the precedent of the sept challenging the precedent of the entire nation.
Yes.
I mean, isn't it
That
already
is the
different?
problem of this
Isn't it?
discussion.
No. Isn't it already different in every fucking other sept? Like, in some other septs, the judges are like, you mate, you die. In other septs, you mate and you are cool unless there is a child. So, like, what's the issue? It's already different in many other septs. Even a different tribes see it different way.
Even with different laws that don't apply to the first law, septs are different. I've even lived in a sept where if you weren't married by 12, you were executed. Every sept is different. Every sept has their weird laws that they apply just to their personal bubbles.
Isn't that disrespect of those beneath you? Pretty sure that's a litany breach.
I'm not disagreeing with you there. I'm just saying septs applied their own variations.
This is valid and true.
I think that the point they're trying to get across is that if the two septs decide, and hypothetically, that's right, hypothetically, if the septs were to decide that same-sex coupling is legal, but you as an individual Philodox still think it shouldn't be legal, so all your rulings make it illegal, all your rulings are going to be challenged to the higher philodoxes, and all of them are going to be turned.
Yes, that is how the system works. Or at least in theory.
What might happen is that precedent might be set here because there is no precedent.
Yes, that is entirely the point, is we are trying to set a precedent.
For this sept
I
and this
believe
sept
that
alone.
is... Well, and Unbroken
Well,
Accord.
And Unbroken Accord, but you
Jeremy
find
waves.
me.
That's why I'm here.
Think we both know what I meant?
And Jeremy stands up. He's like, no truth, beta of the sept and the highest ranking Philodox, so I guess I'm the interim truth catcher. And Will just shrugs his shoulders. Sorry.
So, may I ask, what is your judgment then, Raya? What is this discussion has come to? No medicine, no problem. Is that the outlook of your looking at the moment?
I follow a pack that is dedicated to Freya. Freya's war, death, fertility. Honestly,
Oh, sure. Can I join that pack?
No.
Okay. Well, I tried.
Aziza's muttering down.
Come to and add a character.
Seems like a good
Unbroken
idea for me,
Accord
but
is
I
not a
like
playable.
Yeah, I
Add
know.
a character.
I know.
Unbroken
It's
Accord is
completely
not a
okay.
playable sept.
Nope.
Scamier, I apologize. Please.
I am of the alignment that if two people, whether they be Garu or Garu, they love each other and want to be together, who am I to say no to that?
I owe you a beer.
I have a stake in that. I won't go into details, but there's a reason why I feel that way. And that is what I would recommend.
I owe you a cold beer. That's all I say.
And if meta, then we deal with that basis. People know what they're getting into, or they should. And if they don't, then that's...
I would have to say, Mr. She'll motion at Jeremy.
A seer, please call me a seer.
Mr. Asir would be the most logical, in my opinion.
He'll smile.
So, honored elders, what are we deciding in the heart of Aeolus then?
To
Moira kind of looks over
the
to
others.
Diana and Will.
Will and Diana and to Seer. A Seer, what Diana will say, a Seer makes a very good point. I would go with that. We let people be together. That has happened. We case by case basis. And Will not in agreement. He can't argue.
Like, what do we mean by case basis? I think I missed part of what was said. Apologies. I think some people
We're not going to deal a universal decision on punishment if people make metas. We will deal with it if they happen.
Okay, I think I'm back now. DC
I saw
monsters
a
hitting pretty hard today.
I don't know if you caught that. Jeremy or Asir and Earl asked what they meant by case basis to hand down a universal whether whether we're punishing people, we'll deal with it as it comes. Because right now they just don't want to make a decision.
Yeah, Moira would not in agreement.
Because when Diana will say, because when it comes down to it, a metis birth is very violent, and I doubt very many female Garu do that.
We should all go and drink cold beers at Alexi's bar.
So our interpretation of Garu shall not mate with Garu is they should not have sex for the purpose of procreation.
I mean, that's always been the bare minimum standard, even amongst the most radical progressives of the nation.
True, but the litany doesn't say thou shalt not make metis.
Aziza.
Yes, this is the point that I made, yes.
No, it says mate.
No, the litany does mate. The problem is that what mating is unclear. Is it sex in general? Is it sex for procreation? And accept and tell people they can't fuck each other. If they want to do it, they can do it. If they love and be together, then they can. Who are we to say no that they can't? But mating in a nature means procreating. So if a medicine, then we deal with it when it does, this second. So yes, mating means sex for procreation.
Okay.
That is my
No, I wasn't.
final opinion.
I wasn't being defiant. I wasn't being defiant. I just wanted to know how to intelligently defend the ruling.
No, I know. Nobody has definitively said what it means to them, and I'm saying that's what it means to me. And Jeremy will nod. He'll say, yes, I'm in agreement with Diana that that's what that means, is that mating is for the purposes of procreation.
So the decision from Honorable Raz is to handle these issues on a case-by-case basis, yes?
Yes, but we're not going to suppress... We're not going to make people suppress their feelings for each other. If they want to be together, they can.
So it's not a case-by-case basis.
Well,
the case by case basis is if they have a metis.
Well, that's
that we're not punishing people right out of the gate for being together. If they produce a metis, then we'll decide if they need to be punished or not.
Oh, well, that's.
Hey,
I think at that point it's just a measure of how much.
producing a metis, we're saying is to us is violating the first part of the litany.
It's
It-
that part is irrefutable. I would die on that hill quite happily, to be completely frank.
Now,
Okay, Aziz has removed her head from her hands at this point and looked to the elders and goes, I have your ruling. May I take my leave now, please?
Moira nods.
Thank you. I will be at my apartment if you wish to speak to me. And she's going to leave. I'm sorry, I have to go, guys.
All right. See ya.
Okay, bye.
bye.
It was a fun 2 hours.
Moment. So
So the case-by-case basis is what kind of punishment is fitting, not whether or not they should be punished at all.
Because with all due respect, from what I understand, we already had this on this topic. For example, the case of Samara would be different than any other individual. I think
Right.
that's what our
It's-
elders is meaning by when they say case by case basis.
Right. Well, I'm not going to advocate for putting people to death, but yes, there should be some sort of punishment for producing a metis. We will figure out what that is when it happens. I'm not ruling that today.
Okay. But it's before you said whether they should be punished or not, so I just want a clarification.
Sorry, I meant what type of punishment they should get, and the severity. And if, like in the case of Samara, if a metis were to be produced that way, then of course that is an entirely different topic. But here today, a metis produced out of two Garu willingly being together would be punished, and when it happens, we will decide the punishment.
Understood.
And Diana will look to the others for that sort of definitive agreement.
oh yeah, most of the other Philodox will nod in agreement. Hector is standing with his arms crossed. He's not sure about this.
So the ones of mine that aren't quite entirely satisfied or sure about it are these four. All of them. They're going to allow these two seps to do what they're going to do, but they're not entirely sure if they're going to allow that at their seps. It would need to be something that is further discussed at a later time. All of these old fuckers are getting tired and they want to take a nap.
Hector's just sick of being in fucking Hamid, to be fair.
I mean, that's fair.
He fucking hates being in Hamid.
So, yeah, but as far as the ones for the two seps in question today, their Philodoxes are in agreement with it. Except Bailey isn't sure. Bailey has no idea. He's like, I don't know about this. Poor Bailey.
Indeed, poor Bailey. His little brain is just, not prepared to comprehend all of this.
There's Bailey.
Maeve will give him all the hugs and kisses when he gets back. So
yeah, he's just been listening. He doesn't have much of an opinion to offer, except I don't know about this. But he knows he's a foster, and so it's like, yeah, my opinion only matters so much. And he's the den parent, so he'll take the ruling and he will interpret it as, if they want to be together, they can. If they want to make a metis, fuck no. It's not happening. So
Is there anyone
So
else
yeah,
who wants to speak up?
we will
Clearly, my
write
son
this.
wants to.
We will write this up and put it in Discord so that everybody can read what what it actually is. Out of character, because we'll need to write this shit down.
Yeah. When I have more of a brain.
Same. I'm half dead, so. Yeah, so if nobody else has anything, I think this is a great place to end this scene because it's gone 2 hours. So.
Mm-hmm. Going once. Going twice. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay.
Ferocious typing.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, players, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. This has been another scene for Unmask Orlando, the Werewolf the Apocalypse venue. We will see you next time.